am not alone in this first session. I will be co-presenting with Susie. I didn't think he was going to hand over so quickly. I feel a little bit off sorts. Okay, so we'll just jump in, make the maximum use of the time. And they work. If this is not the session you were hoping to attend, this is the time to leave. Yeah? All right. This is the best session. Okay, so who am I? 22 years at Elsevier. 22 years ago, I went on holiday to Holland, took a job, and still there. I don't know what that says about me or the company, but let's assume it's all good. In 2013, I was introduced to Pure. I had no idea what it was. Sometimes I still think I don't. But after 10 years in January, I think I have a good grasp of some of the concepts. And part of my job is to talk to institutions that are looking to adopt a research information management system and to guide them through that process, to try not to be too obtrusive and to cry with them and to laugh with them and to hopefully, after around about approximately averaging out 18 months, to come to a decision. And it is in that capacity that I met Susie. Actually, that was longer than 18 months. It was a longer journey. So following months and months of ticking functional boxes, we get to that stage where it's signed and we've had the champagne. Deep inside, I know this is only the start of the journey, but let's go with it. And we always come to the conclusion after a project that it was so much worse than we thought it would be. And part of my job is to get you ready for that process. So how do I do that? I don't know if you've ever seen this TV show, but this is really what it's like. You wear comfortable clothes and you get ready to get stuck in the mud. Now, there are 4 topics that I've learned over the course of the last 10 years that I try to address in one way, shape, or another. And that is data readiness, doesn't exist. Change management, please don't ever forget that. Resources and skills, and managing the time and the expectations, not just of the project, but of everybody around you. And part of my job as a member of the Elsevier team is to try and make that sound attainable, because we do want you to adopt Pure. I don't want to scare you off. So diving a little bit into those themes, because I really want to hand over to Susie. She's got the real meat of the presentation. If we look at these 4 areas, data readiness, change management, resources and skills, and time and expectations, for those of you that I know personally in my capacity, these topics will sound vaguely familiar. I don't put them out there and go, this is what you need to do, unless you ask, but I do often mention, so how good is your data? And you really do need somebody that can script XML, very well. So delving into this, what is data readiness? We're asking for a reasonable quality, that it has to be aligned with your return on investments. If you're interested in reports on collaboration, please make sure that you have external profiles in your database. Otherwise, we have a problem. Those sorts of things. Location and access. Can we get to the data? That sounds so silly, but sometimes you really need to think about it. Sometimes system owners are a little hesitant to just allow you access. Is it in a format we can work with? Then moving on to change management. Which systems are impacted? Because that is often the ecosystem that is impacted is sometimes bigger than we think. We try to simplify to get a grasp on a bigger project. But when you really delve into it, you'll notice that there's a lot more stakeholders involved. Which teams are impacted? Are the right roles assigned as part of the project team? Are there policy changes that will likely change once we implement Pure? Moving on to time and expectations. Is there a project lead, an administrator? Those 2 should have been switched over. All right, resources and skilled. There is a project lead, an administrator, an XML developer, a technical support person, and other people that need to be involved as part of your, do not touch the stage, that need to be involved as part of the project. Because, and this varies, you can have multiple caps on. I'm fairly sure Susie had 8 caps on at one stage. But there has to be somebody in charge. You have to have somebody that can script XML. If the portal is one of your key ROI returns, is your communications or marketing person on board as well? Do they know what's happening? And that relates to change management. A system like Pure will touch all aspects of the organization. Moving on to time and expectation. Are there dependencies, internal, external? We're going to use Pure for a major assessment at the end of 2025. That means you need to be done by the end of 2024 because you need to roll out. You need to give people time to get used to it. Recruitment. If we're signing today and your project is set to start next week, do you have all the people in place? Then please, let's wait 3-4 months until all the right people are available, and then we start. Because otherwise your project that was initially scheduled for 9 months suddenly becomes 18 months. And reserving the right resources and to manage the expected start and end date of every phase of the project as you go through it. Now, all of this is interrelated because you'll see the one is dependent on the other and it keeps moving around. And after this bit, I sort of go into it's like sending a loved one off to war. I've spoken to you for, going on 18 months. Well, good luck. Remember, data quality, XML, and you send them off and you hope for the best and you get together once a month and you sort of pray. I discover religion at that stage. And you wish them well. Now, one such journey is the journey that we're taking in Ireland, where we have something called an HEA net procurement framework. You can see what it is, but it's basically a means and an ends to acquire the system that you like. Very pleased to say that several of the Irish communities have chosen Pure. Now, in 2020, I commenced discussions with which was then the Waterford Institute of Technology and is now the Southeast Technological University. I'm not allowed to say two, but it's very easy. All right. And I was introduced to Susie, and our journey together started, which lasted, I think, probably going on 2 years, start to today, and including implementation. Now, right off the bat, Susie was always very honest. And sometimes that was like, oh, okay. Well, I did say, but we always had a fantastic engagement and we sort of helped each other go through this journey together. And when somebody in the UK asked me, okay, we're about to start implementing, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? And the first person that jumped into my mind was Susie. And so this presentation was born. I'm very grateful she's here to share her story. So remember, I prepare you. Now we're going to see the reality.
I'm a little bit worried when she said I was a bit too frank and honest.
It's a good thing.
Just like the coffee, which I've had plenty of this morning. So can you ever be ready for a pure implementation project? That's the title of the presentation. And the answer is probably no. But a little bit about me first. I've been working in, as Helen said, Waterford Institute of Technology for the past 24 years. And now we're Southeast Technological University. And a lot of the institutes of technology in Ireland have gone through that process. So they're a merged organisation, which makes the implementation of Pure way more fun, I am telling you. I was the manager of the research support unit for 20 years, so I understood, research and the research environment I was working in. And in August 2020, then I moved to implementing some key strategic kind of research enabling projects, and Pure was one of them. Also a CRM and also Research Connections. I manage an internal funding program, so Pure wasn't my only job. And I've just completed a master's in project and program management as well, which was hugely beneficial in presenting this, in implementing this project. So as Helen said, it's knowing what I know now, what would I have done differently in the past? And it's a post-rollout look back at, the lessons that I learned along the way. Now, I use the word post-rollout very loosely because we rolled out Pure in April of this year with our Pure portal, and we have all our profiles and our research outputs and our activities and so on up on our lovely portal now. But I'm currently finalising the award management module and hope to roll that out over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So taking this week off was putting my timeline out a little bit. Because early in the new year, I have to start all of the integrations with our Carlo IT systems and all of the integrating all of the staff from our Carlo colleagues who have since joined the organisation. So that's going to be really fun. But the real benefit for me in managing Pure is that I understood, having worked in the organisation for 24 years, I knew most of the researchers, I knew most of the reporting requirements, which was getting hugely complicated. And this is why we needed Pure, to make that process more seamless. So at the very outset, I prepared a 21-page project charter which covered all of the eventualities. And I should have underlined all of the eventualities there that could happen during the project, and how wrong was I. I'd say if it was like 1/10 of what could happen during the project. And at the same time of starting this project, actually, I was starting my master's, as I mentioned, and I was learning all of the science and principles of project and program management and the importance of a project charter. So I thought that was a great little tick box exercise for me. And I was learning all about, the different project management tools and processes, and one of them being stakeholder engagement. So obviously we had the project charter where we identify our project scope, and then we had the importance of stakeholder identification, engagement, and communication, which were critically important. And now these weren't new concepts to me, having been involved in project management for the past 20 years, but sometimes you forget when you're managing multiple projects how to keep the stakeholders actively engaged and in identifying the really correct stakeholders for the project. So keeping to project scope was a really difficult task for me on this project, because the more I learned about Pure, the more I wanted. But as project management professionals, we must remember the iron triangle of project management, or the triple constraint, which represents the restrictions that we project managers face on every single project. And that's the 3 restrictions of cost, scope, and time. So I keep on having to pull myself back, and that's why that project charter is critically important, so you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And every now and again, Helen would tell me a new feature, you can push this back to ePrints, and that's another module, and I'm there going, okay, we'll have that, but I have to try and keep myself real. That's just a little bit about the system landscape. I won't go through it all. So obviously we wanted to link in with our core HR system, our banner system, which is our student record management system, our ePrint system, which was our repository, M7, and our RSUSys, which was our database that we had all of our research projects and proposals and so on in. And at the very outset, again, in my lovely project scope at the start, I had a working group set up in order to feed into the project and that I would engage with throughout the project, a lot of the data owners. And as project manager professionals, we may think that we're the most important person on the project, but let me tell you a secret, this is not the case. With a Pure implementation project, the most important person is this person here, that IT system specialist. Get that right and you're on the ball. Get that wrong and you're in trouble. And I've seen a lot of Irish universities grapple with getting the right person. They go out, they advertise, they interview, they don't get the right person, and it can cause huge delays in the project. Now, I was really lucky in that Jonathan Brazil was our research system support officer who worked with me in the research office for, say, the past 7 years. He agreed to contribute to the project, but Jonathan does this on top of his normal day job. So he wasn't released into the project full-time. And that's the first key learning for me, is you need a full-time technical expert on this project, because I have to wait for Jonathan to be able to give me dedicated, pockets of his time in order to be able to help out with the project. But that data extraction and transformation is critically important to the success of a Pure implementation project. And Helen often says to me, everybody needs a Jonathan on one of these projects because his skill set is just wonderful. And who is the ideal person then for that particular project? So I've asked Jonathan that question. So I've seen staff resourcing being a huge issue, as I said, especially in the Irish universities. And I've been approached by a lot of UK universities as well, and recently a German university. And it's the same, it's kind of what kind of a skill set. So I won't go through all of those, but these are kind of the things that Jonathan can do that he thinks would be hugely beneficial, that if you could get somebody to, fit all of this, it would be super to have them on your team. And again, as I said, have them involved, and Helen mentioned it there, have them involved from day one of this project, because there's no point in launching the project, meeting with your implementation manager, and they say, is your data ready? And you're there going, hold on, and I go and employ my technical expert, and 6 months later, lo and behold, we can start working on our actual data for this. I also had identified in the project charter some key advisors that I would, work with on the project. And these were kind of, the line managers in IT, in industry services and so on across the organisation, because Pure would impact on the workings of their offices. But what I didn't realise and who I didn't engage with early enough in the project are those people on the ground in the HR office, in the library team, that were going to actually have to give me the data. It's all very well the line manager saying this is a wonderful idea, it's going to be great into the future, we're going to have huge reporting capabilities, but then when you go and talk to the person in the HR office whose main concern is get people payroll are paid at the end of the month, and they don't have the time to give you the data when you require it. So that was another learning for me. Engage with those people way earlier on in the project. Helen mentioned the importance of change management, and change management in any project is obviously going to be critically important. And from day one, I engaged with various stakeholders across the organisation. As I mentioned, I had my working group, I had my email communications, I had a lovely newsletter that I used to circulate about Pure. But let me tell you, people don't read all of this information. Like, busy academics are so time constrained that they don't get the time to read something that's not going to be relevant to them at a particular time. So another key learning for me is that I would set up the Pure advisory group far earlier on in the project implementation and get them out there talking to their colleagues, their peers. You have senior researchers, you have academics, you have postgraduate students as these Pure advisors, and get them talking to people, notifying them what's coming down the line, because this is going to make your lives so much easier down the line. So I would have that set up far earlier on in the project, because we only set ours up around, I'd say, 6 weeks prior to the launching the Pure profiles and trying to get the staff interested in it, and give them a demo way earlier on in the process. And the final step, obviously, in the change management process, which I'm currently working on, is updating all of the procedures and policies across the organisation with the new requirements that Pure brings on with it. Helen mentioned data readiness, and my heart sinks every time I think of data readiness. And I didn't think data readiness would be an issue. And Q-Ho was our implementation manager, and he said, "Is your data ready to go?" And I was there going, "Yeah, absolutely." I assumed it was all going to be perfect in our internal systems. But we all know what they say about assumptions. This was a huge body of work for us. And if I was to do this all over again, I would have had a separate project prior to starting the implementation process in checking and cleaning our data, because it was a massive undertaking. That process of getting access to the data, which I thought was going to be like a simple phone call, cleaning the data, ensuring that quality of data, identifying data gaps, because there's certain fields in Pure that you need and you can't bring in the information unless you have all of those fields, was a large body of work, let me put it that way. So data access, let me bring you back to the point about having the right person on the ground in the HR or the library team who can actually give you access to the data if and when required. The data quality, we had huge issues with regard to our data quality, because in our core HR system, it's a back-end system. People really don't care about what they're called in the HR system. But if they're not there as doctor on the portal or professor on the portal, I'm telling you something, they care very, very quickly. So I got a spreadsheet from the core HR system after identifying all of the staff which were going to get a profile. And because I'd worked in the college for like 100 years, I knew, Peter McLaughlin was a professor and so was a doctor, and I could see all of these errors in the information in front of me. So there was a huge amount of time cleaning up that data, and in my naivety, all I thought I had to do was send that lovely spreadsheet over to HR and say, please update, but that wasn't the case. An audit had to happen in the core HR office to make sure that they had the relevant PhD qualification on file and so on. And this all happened during COVID when everybody was working from home, and a lot of our information was hard copy. So if COVID has done anything for us, it's to bring all of that data online. So again, I could have been waiting weeks for a person in HR to go into the office to actually check that they had. And if they didn't, they had to contact the relevant researcher, get a copy of it on file, and eventually I had doctor as my line item on my spreadsheet. So with data cleaning, that was a huge body of work. And finally, the data gaps. One gap that I'll give you an example of, which I was actually mesmerised. Sometimes I used to ring Helen and say, like, I can't believe this is not there. So in our ePrint system is where we housed all of our PhD theses and our master's theses, and we wanted to bring all of those so we could link them to the supervisors' profiles. But when we went to that to the library and asked them for the data, the supervisor's name was not captured as a field in the ePrint system. So we had the student name, their school, department, but we had nobody to link them to. So we had an intern, and I'd advise everybody to get a student intern working with you on this project, who had to open every single PDF, record the name of the supervisor on a spreadsheet, and then Jonathan was able to bring in all of the theses in onto it. That was like 3 weeks of work that I had never anticipated that we would have to do. Luckily enough, we didn't have tens of thousands, of masters and PhD theses. So this is the level of work that I never thought of. I thought Pure was going to come in, the implementation manager was going to come in, link in all my systems, and voila, here we had 9 months later, all this wonderful information online. So that line item, that data readiness, or might seem like a tiny little line item on your implementation plan, but this is actually, quite an extensive body of work. Seamless integration then, you'll hear a lot about that, and I'm sure you've gone through the process of procuring such a system, and they'll all talk to you about seamless integration. But sometimes I look like Rufus here on the screen when I hear the word seamless integration, because I just don't get it yet. And we all know that seamless data integration is essential for maximising efficiency and minimising errors. And you do this by entering data into a system just once, and then that data is then available to be integrated with other systems. So therefore, you're eliminating all those errors, which is the absolute dream. So the sell is that Pure brings information from your data sources onto a single and intelligent platform, unlocking organised insights to elevate your research potential. Now that's just wonderful, and it does do that, but it takes time for it to do that. So we did not realise that in our internal systems the data wasn't captured in the format suitable for the Pure portal in some instances, making that seamless data integration quite difficult. So again, I'll give you examples. So in our core HR system, a head of school is classified, their title is an SL3 because it's a senior lecturer grade 3, but that feeds the payroll. But I can't have SL3 as Professor Peter McLaughlin's title on the Pure portal, externally facing portal. And the same, we have heads of department or SL2s, assistant lecturer pro rata, paid per hour is another person's title. You can't have that on the portal. So Jonathan has to work his magic and convert all of that information into the appropriate format for the externally facing portal. Also, in an ideal world, our core HR system would contain information on research group and centre affiliation, for example, because one of our key reasons for implementing Pure is to take away that step of a researcher having to complete their research group and centre annual report. So all of the data would be automatically harvested from Pure, and we'd have our annual reports. But we have to manually add that then before we bring it into Pure. Now, I have tried for 18 months to try and get a field in our internal system. This seems to be like, I think at one stage I had a developer who wanted me to pay 15,000 to get one extra field in our internal system, because we have national systems, and we have to go through, as Helen mentioned, the HEA net for these procurement of all of these different fields in systems. So now I haven't given up on the quest yet. I'm absolutely going to try and get this information in our systems in order to be able to seamlessly integrate with our Pure portal. I'm actually almost finished. So Helen mentioned the time and expectations. Now, how realistic is it to assume a 9-month implementation? I think I'm on 18 months maybe. But Helen mentioned, project lead, administrator, XML developer, technical support and others. Now, who really gets those resources? But what I would really recommend is that you have a full-time project lead and a technical expert. And then obviously you'll have to pull on other resources, but it's really important that management understand the huge resource and time commitments. And that's why when I've been approached by various people across who are starting out on this implementation process, I tell them, get your manager to talk to me, get the vice president of research or whoever it is who's leading this, so that I get across to them the importance of this resource commitment, because it's really difficult to do it on top of your normal day job if you're actually, if this is something that has landed on your shoulders. So some key lessons learned is seamless integration was not so seamless, but it's not to any fault of Pure or the Pure implementation manager. And a shout out to Q Ho, who unfortunately couldn't make it. He was absolutely amazing and was just an unbelievable support to us throughout this project. But it's because our internal systems are, designed to, feed the payroll, or to pay the students, or to graduate the students, not, for Pure. Having a point of contact who is willing to and who has the time to actually give you the data, because everybody's really, really busy. So it's really important that they understand the times that they're going to have to give to this project to get that information and to clean up all of the data, because all I wanted was access to all of these systems. And I've seen in some organisations they have a little bit more access to the actual systems, but I couldn't get access. If I could only get access to my core HR system, I could update the data. But we couldn't manage that. Don't underestimate the time in assessing quality and accessing quality data. That was hugely time consuming to ensure that data readiness is there. And cleaning up institutional data was hugely time consuming. Great fun though, and it's wonderful because we've made so many improvements to the data now in the university, which benefits obviously everybody across the board. And start the engagement process early and set up that ambassador group really early on in the project. Get them out there spreading the words, because people listen to their peers more so than they do the administrator or the project manager in an office there in their ivory towers. And communicate, and use hugely, vast methods of communication. Be really diverse with your methods of communication. And getting that right person from the IT system specialist, if any of you are to go away with any kind of guidance, that's critical. That will ensure the success of this project. Some final realizations that I've kind of, over the last couple of weeks is launching Pure, like Helen said, after 18, 24 months, that was it. Susie started and, that was the beginning of the journey. No, it's not. I feel I'm only now beginning my journey because there's just so much more to do with Pure. I have so much more to learn, and this is why I'm here at the conference, to learn. We're not alone, which I absolutely love, because a lot of times with these implementation projects, you're just really left by yourself. I implemented a CRM earlier this year. That was it. We had a Microsoft Dynamics system. We had an implement, and they're disappeared, and they're gone ever since. But we always have huge amount of support there every day that, we can pick up the phone to or send a quick email to. And we're actually setting up the Ireland Pure user group. We're having our inaugural meeting tomorrow. So if there's anyone else here from Ireland that I haven't yet met, please come and talk to me, because we can learn from each other. And that's me.